This is Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you are welcome. You know the drill. Please subscribe, rate, comment, share, reach out, tell your friends, send smoke signals, whatever. We love your feedback and we want to hear from you. This week, our sponsors are Fabfitfun and LinkedIn. Fabfitfun is a seasonal subscription box delivered 4 times a year with full-size beauty, fashion, home, fitness, and wellness products for just $49.99 a box. These boxes always sell out, so use my code WALKIN to get $10 off your first box. Go to fabfitfun.com to sign up and start getting the box for a life well lived. Post a job today at linkedin.com/walkin and get $50 off your first job post. That's linkedin.com/walkin. Terms and conditions apply. I like to call this segment the Woo Review, in which my guests and I will be discussing all things New Age, from astrology to tarot to sound baths to reiki. I have a background in hippieism, and I thought it would be cool to share with my conservative, libertarian, rational audience. My guest this week is Anne, a friend who's addicted to psychics. I'm with Anne, everyone. Hi, Anne. Welcome to the show.
Hey, everyone.
Walk-ins, welcome.
Hey, Bridge.
Hi. So Anne is a friend of mine, and I had to have her on for many reasons, but mostly because recently I discovered that you have a psychic addiction. And I'm like, I've got to know everything about this.
That's true. It's the truth.
How did it start?
It started because I wanted to know what was going to happen within a relationship. It wasn't actually even a relationship. It was like one date with this guy, and I was just wondering where it was going to go. And it was just at a time when I was sort of vulnerable, I guess.
How long ago? This seems to be... So for full disclosure, I'm obsessed with reading psychic reviews on Yelp.
Oh my gosh.
They're my favorite. I'm writing a whole thing about it and a stand-up. I'm obsessed with this. And
did you see the John Oliver thing on it?
No.
Oh my God, you have to watch it. It's like interesting how like little Zen cones are like dropped in your life when they're supposed to be dropped. Because yesterday I was talking to a girl and she said, "Oh, did you see the John Oliver little thing on it?" And I actually don't love him that much. But I was like, okay, I'll watch it. But it's just, he made a lot of interesting points, and, you know, of course, like a lot of humor interlaced, but the points were really valid. And he also showed clips of where like psychics were like wrong, and not just like a little wrong. Like they're like, this girl is dead and she wasn't dead. Or like this kid has, you know, been horribly maimed in a tragic accident. And then he was like sitting behind her in Denny's, you know?
Yeah. But when in the review, it seems to be that they're a bit predatory. Like almost everybody said something along the lines of they were in, like what you just said, you were kind of in a weak or like vulnerable place.
Yeah. I think, I guess, and what I learned too from last night, and it's just funny that like I'm actually sort of coming out of it now. And it was I always kind of gotten, you know, astrological readings or tarot readings or things like that here and there. And then for some reason it just took hold, and it was online and very easy. Like your credit card info is already there, and it's just like an online chat. And so it was just and some of them are phone, but with the chat, you have the transcripts, so you can read them back. And it was just very easy. And for some reason it just took hold. And I'm not kidding you, for 2.5 years straight, I spoke with my psychic, with others, like intermix. Like I would consult others too, but with him specifically.
But you had a main one.
I had a main one. My main boo.
And how did you pick him?
Well, you know, it's interesting because, yeah, a lot of the people on the site are kind of predatory, and ones I've seen in person, and you can kind of get a feel for how they are. Like I saw one psychic on Wilshire, and she was like, "You have really bad energy. Like for $60, I can clear it or whatever." And I was just like, "Yeah," I was like, "That's so." I just really like. More than just knowing it wasn't true, I was angry because I was like, I'm coming to you for advice, and then you're gonna really take advantage of me so blatantly,
and it's like proving a negative, Yeah. Well, I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I guess I'll just live with that bad energy.
Prove to me you don't have bad energy.
Yeah, exactly. So with him, he just was. It was interesting because with him, I always, and it's kind of, it's a parallel experience with him because he actually changed my life in a really good way. Mm-hmm. And he pointed out some really unhealthy patterns that I had, which weren't that, it wasn't, you didn't take a rocket scientist to know that I was like behaving unstably, but he was the first person to like, he didn't care at all. He was like, "You're acting unstable." And I was like, unstable? Like that word sounded so terrible. Yeah. I was imagining like jerking my car on the freeway or like, like something like unstable just sounded so bad. And like when he kept using that word, he's like, so what it was mainly is that he would just say like, you guys do have a deeper connection and the relationship will pan out, but you need to heal first. Mm-hmm. And healing means like from childhood trauma and all this other stuff that I was kind of dealing with. So he was not predatory, and he never, like, there are other psychics on this specific website that like, they'll be like, "I shuffled the cards and you have like some blessings coming up, like book a session." And I'd be like, "What blessings?" And they'd be like, "Book a session."
No.
And then you'll find out. Or like this one guy, he was like $20 a minute too. So expensive.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Just bookmark, like, I want to know rates and stuff too, but keep going. What you were saying, the guy.
Oh, okay. The predatory guy or my guy?
The guy you were just saying, he was like $20 a minute.
Oh yeah. Okay. So he kept writing me on the email part of the site, and he would say, "Oh, Anne, we need to talk to you because Bert is coming back, and there's new news and and all this stuff." And so he would just keep emailing me and trying to hook me in. And like, I consider myself like smart naive, or like like a mixture of both. Like, right. I'm naive in the sense that like, yeah, I paid like, upwards of like, I don't even want to, like 50, 60 grand over the last 2 years to talk to these people.
That's an addiction.
That's an addiction.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
But certified. But at the same time, like, I also know when like he's like trying to hook me in, and like I would just play with him and be like, "Oh, okay. Yeah. Tell me what's going on." Uh-huh. And then he would inevitably be like, "Oh, you have to book me." And I'm like, "Sorry, no."
So when you first initially, you had this question about a guy.
Right.
And then you how did you decide to consult a psychic? Was it like a pop-up ad and you thought, "Oh, that might be a good idea"? Or did somebody you knew had a friend who'd done it? Or were you just like down some internet rabbit hole?
No, I always, do you know that store, Mystic Bookshop or whatever it's called on Abbot Kinney?
Yeah.
They're Mystic Journeys or something like that. I would go there every so often for like a reading. And then at this point, I really just felt very connected to this dude and was like,
okay.
Whoa, okay, like this is a strong connection, but like he just wasn't in the right place. And I knew that, but I wanted to know what was going on. And I was just like, I had like amazing restraint for me with him. Like I was just like not texting after the date, just one. And so it was like, it was one of those things where like, I knew we had a good time. I knew we had chemistry. So like, why didn't I hear from him for a while?
Yeah.
And then eventually I did. And then as we started talking, I was like, okay, I know that there's a connection here, but he happens to be in a band that tours. So like there was a very valid reason that he's
a musician.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I know. Which I hate because it's like he's actually he's a very cool, stable person. And I was like the toxic, like crazy one.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that you out crazied a musician.
Yeah, right? I know. God, I don't know
Whenever
if I
my
should-
girlfriends are like, oh yeah, I love this guy and he's really good. And it's in the book I'm writing for women. It's all I have like the top 5 guys that if you are dating, you lose the right to cry on my shoulder. And musicians is like top 3.
Okay, so then who am I going to go to when he does inevitably come back around and like
You
stuff?
can come to me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
I'll still stay open. You can, and I joke that of course you can still cry on my shoulder if you date a musician, but it's just one of the know what you're signing up for.
Right, exactly. And I mean, trust me, I'm aware of that too. It's like, okay, if you date an athlete and they cheat on you, like don't come crying to me kind of thing.
Yeah.
I totally hear that. It's, you know, and yeah, there's
That's funny. Professional athletes are on there too.
Yeah, I mean, and that I hope top
And
of the
Australians.
list. Because, yeah, right. Or Hawaiians, like the like ones that are
Like surfers.
Yeah, exactly. I went to UCSB and there was like a lot of there was like a big group of Hawaiians there, and they'd always like, you know, under the guise of aloha spirit, like kiss you on the lips to say hi and bye. And I'm like, okay, like, all right.
We know this one.
Yeah. So you know, I totally understood that about, it wasn't like I was blind to the fact that like he's a musician and had some options. I mean, he's not like Justin Bieber. It wasn't like that level, but it was like he had options, you know, and I was open and I could see that, but also he wasn't like a skirt chaser, like
right.
like it wasn't something where he was like, I don't know, he's just a really like classy guy.
Yeah.
And it was so I mean, I'm sure he has taken advantage of his, you know, position in some ways. Like who wouldn't? If you're like, you know, a guy and there's like hot girls throwing themselves at you, okay, sure, indulge a bit, but he's not like one of those guys that you hear about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
No, I know actually a lot of musicians who are just more interested in the music too.
Yeah,
And
he's more of like an artist weirdo than like a Motley Crue sort of,
like Led Zeppelin.
yeah, like Steven Tyler, like who else that's just like Gene Simmons.
So you went to the place and then they had readings there, and then how did you get hooked into the guy that you talked to on the guy that you had like your main psychic guy? He was online.
Yeah, he was online. So I went to the Mystical Journeys place and I got a reading, which wasn't atypical. I would get probably one a year, and actually when Mystic Journey or whatever the heck it's called was actually in the middle of Abbot Kinney, it's in its second or whatever, it's in a new location for a few years now, but it was in the middle of Abbot Kinney before. And I had a reading there and the lady said in 6 days, 6 weeks or 6 months, you're going to meet a guy that you'll be with for a long time. And I kid you not, Bridge, 6 weeks to the day, I went on my first date with my longest term ex. We were together for 3.5 years. So it's, you know, there were experiences that I had that validated that like this, it's not everyone is a fraud. And I was actually just talking with my therapist about this today. She believes we kind of have the same opinion that like out of billions of people that have lived on Earth and before us, like it's not weird that like someone could have this ability.
I am psychic.
Are you?
I mean,
you're a Scorpio, so yeah, you're definitely.
I'm not. I don't write them all off. I have. I've had too many weird experiences working with kids with autism, where they have a weird sixth sense that they're tapped into, and I think. And I've had my own experiences, even when I was a kid, just weird stuff like sitting at the kitchen table one night. I said, "What happened to the tree?" And the tree got struck by lightning.
No way.
And freaked everyone out. And my best friend and I are telepathically connected. I can think her name and she will call me. And it's not like we talk every day. She has 2 kids. She's in Chicago. Like we probably talk once every couple months. But if I need her and I know when something's going wrong with her, and I've had just weird, everyone around me kind of knows that I'm a weird like there's something. Even the guy that I was dating when we were traveling around the world, I couldn't sleep and I was down on his couch, and every single night I was like, there's a ghost in this place. And he kept just saying like, Bridget, stop saying that, you weirdo. And then I said, did you have and then the ghost was really weird. I was like, that's just like crazy energy. And then one night I was half asleep and I saw that I was like in between waking and dreaming. And I saw a dog running around and I was like, oh my God, it was a dog. That makes so much sense. And he like turned white as a ghost and he was like, don't ever talk about this around my kids. And apparently they had some dog and then they had to get rid of it. And I don't really know what happened to this dog, but it sounds kind of sketch. I don't know, but they had this dog that they loved and then they had to get rid of it. And he was so freaked out by that when we were in Egypt, and a similarly weird thing that I just wrote about on my Patreon actually happened, where I couldn't like move for like 2 days because I felt like I had some.
You were in a tomb?
No, I had some crazy like past life regression. It was crazy. I can't explain it. And I know my listeners all right now are like, Bridget's nuts. But some weird thing happened and I was worried that I was going to like end up in a straitjacket in an Egyptian psych ward because it was so weird. The whole experience was so weird. And he was so he had been so weirded out by me in New Zealand though that he was really cool about it. I think that
he's like, eh.
So I don't
seen it before.
I don't discount Sixth Sense. I don't discount, and whether it's just the brain processes billions of bits of information per second, and we're really only paying attention to that which we care about. And then meanwhile, our brain is recognizing all these patterns, and they've done, these podcasts I've heard where they bust kind of these weird coincidences aren't really that weird when you actually break them down. But I don't think we know everything. And so I don't discount it.
100%.
But I do think a lot of people, I would say that it's maybe 1% has like I guess my French great grandmother, when I was born, she was like, oh, she's touched by the gift.
Oh my gosh.
She said some weird thing. I don't know. So
that's really interesting. Yeah, no. And that's exactly what my therapist said too. She's like, I think like 1% of people really do have it. It's a predatory industry and they definitely prey on people.
You learn to be quiet about it too when you're a kid. So
because you're just like that was weird and I don't want to like.
Well, you see how people react when you're a kid and you don't have that filter and you say those weird things like, oh, what's happening to the tree? And then it gets, something weird happens. You just learn to be quiet. Most people just shut it down, their intuition, or they stop really trusting it. I just always assumed I was like, I had a power and that the adults didn't. And I just kept believing in it and just stopped talking about it. So I never stopped believing. And my best friend and I used to kind of hone it. Even when we were little kids, we would practice when we were in like first and second grade, trying to be like, guess what numbers we were thinking about or whatever. Yeah.
That's really cool that you just like went underground about it. And you're like, I have this thing you guys wouldn't understand later. Hey, but the weird thing is that I'm actually supposed to be in Egypt right now, but I didn't go due to terrorist activity and we canceled the trip. And so right now I should be sitting in Egypt. And then you mention your trip to Egypt. That's weird. I'm sorry. I think that's weird.
It is.
I didn't know that you went to Egypt and I didn't know that you worked with autistic children.
And your last minute booking. It's all weird.
So many things.
Well, that's
I was last minute booking. I didn't know that. So basically I got shooed in when who
well, no, because no one canceled. We have a bunch of things in the can. And I wanted something that was not as political. Interesting. You chose me because that's like all we talk about. I know. But I wanted to talk, and I've been wanting to get you on forever we've been talking about it, about the psychic thing. So I don't discount these weird things. And I don't think that we know everything. I think that would be arrogant. The universe is crazy big. I mean, we were listening to that Michael Singer thing. Did you listen to episode 2 about the Big Bang?
Honestly,
it's insane.
I can't thank you enough for sending me those recordings, because I've been listening to them like as I fall asleep, and like I just re-listen to the parts that I fell asleep on. But it's just, this stuff like touches my soul. It's great.
So we're speaking about the Michael Singer wrote the Untethered Soul. He wrote the Untethered Soul and the Surrender Experiment. And he also has these tapes, and it's about meditation, but it's more just about witnessing the witness, I would say, more than even meditation. Being the observer of your emotional state, your thoughts, your body, just moving your awareness, being able to shift your awareness. And he's interesting. The Surrender Experiment's really interesting. He wrote The Untethered Soul. It became a bestseller. And then he wrote The Surrender Experiment, which kind of explained how he got to all of the wisdom in The Untethered Soul. And his story is pretty crazy. I mean, he's very driven, that as much as he's like, and then I just surrendered. It's like, okay, yeah, but you still worked like 20 hours a day to build your software company that made $1 billion.
It's so funny. Like that. I love it. I love like people like Russell Brand. He's like, it's not about the money, or Jim Carrey. It's not about the money. I'm money. Like, yeah, because you have 20 million in the bank. It's not about the money, So okay.
Right. It's easy to say.
Yeah.
In retrospect, that it wasn't about the money.
That's funny. I didn't Google him, and I usually, if someone really like touches me with their material, I'll Google them, and I'm so curious about who they are, but I didn't Google him for some reason, so I'll have to
he talks about it in the Surrender Experiment too, the whole story. So he talks about the Big Bang, and then he has recordings where he talks about all of his kind of philosophy. And in the second episode, or whatever it is, part 2, he talks about what reality is and what it's made of, and essentially the Big Bang. And when you really listen to just the Big Bang and what they actually know in science, and how it's like, and all of this started as one atom, like,
yeah,
it blows it's mind. We don't know anything. We don't know anything.
We don't know any, and it's interesting to, again, like when things are dropped into your life, like you sent me those on a lark, and then I'm listening to those, and it's like the perfect time for me to receive that information and think, when he's like, when you say you're meditating in the first one, who is meditating?
Right.
And like that kind of thing, and just that
you're like,
real,
what do you mean?
Yeah. That self-actualization, and really, owning your story and letting go of the shame and all that stuff. It's like, it's really speaking to me. So
yeah. Even just that question of who are you? And it's like, well, you're not a name.
If
you're not a body.
And I love that part when he's like, you could actually, just say, on a crazy, like, hypothetical, you could have all of your limbs removed, amputated, and then a heart transplant and all these things, and you'd still be you.
Yeah.
So that was just, I loved that.
And even the part about how the you who's aging essentially is still the you. And
you just feel a little more comfortable in your skin, hopefully. Like, that is truly what I've kind of learned from the aging process, is that, yeah, it's just, I when people are like, oh my God, I'm so sad I'm getting older, like I miss my 20s. I'm like, I don't miss my 20s at all.
No, I don't either.
I have a better bank account. Like, I'm more comfortable with myself. I'm still obviously making decisions, like talking to a psychic to the tune of $60,000. But I kind of chalk it up to like, that was my therapy for the few years.
Well, and that's what I was going to say too, is that you can get I can't deny that some of the guys that I talk to and women on my Patreon at the higher level, the guys are like, you're cheaper than therapy.
No.
So I need to be raising my rates.
I know, right? Do you give them advice?
I don't give advice, but it's somebody that they can talk to, and we talk about all kinds of stuff, life and politics and work and love, and if they're having issues with their love life, they'll talk to me about it. And
oh my gosh, they're so lucky to have you. Does anyone get like creepy, like they just like keep asking questions and like won't let you go?
No, it's the people at that level have, at the $100 level, have become good friends of mine.
Wow.
I mean, mostly I know we talk once a month. They're pretty stable. I had to cap that level. It kind of fluctuates here and there with finances and whatnot, but for the most part, I had to cap it because I was like, I can't be on the phone all day. It was one of the first levels to sell out, which was surprising.
I mean, not that surprising. I'm like, gosh, I get to be your friend for free. Lucky me, you know?
And I don't know. It's interesting. I get so much from those conversations. And also, as somebody who writes to men, having the fact that it's a sampling of men from all across America, and now I have women, which I love.
Friend.
Yeah, it's a sampling of people from all across America and all different ages. Like the youngest is probably in 20s, and then the oldest is 60s maybe, and different backgrounds, socioeconomic, different jobs, different political ideals and philosophies. And it's such a great way to take the temperature of, I guess, just a certain, it's interesting. It's just an interesting. So I think you can get therapy or information. I mean, we're both in, I every single 12-step meeting I go to, I hear at least one thing that shifts my perception.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
100%.
Conversations with friends, or it doesn't need to be, and psychic, I'm sure you could.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've gotten so much wisdom and even just a peek into, how men think from him. And he really, he turned that whole, like, if he's not calling you back, he's too busy for you, that kind of thing. Remember, what was that book that
He's Not That Into You?
He's Not That Into You. He turned that on its head for me. And he said that was written for, like, desperate women who, I mean, I obviously have displayed myself to be like part of that, but, but he said, he was like, people are busy and people have like like, this guy's an artist.
He's driven.
He has a true passion. And that's what I like about him. But, he is busy. And he was like, yeah, there are times where they don't like you, so they're not responding. But there are other times when they truly have priorities and you're just dating and it's not you right now. And that doesn't mean he doesn't like you, or that doesn't mean that he's not interested in you. It just means right now he doesn't have the time. And so I had really
but had he expressed that?
He did, because he was interacting with me.
Well, that's what I mean. So I think that the difference is that if somebody is busy and they're expressing that they're interested in you, but they're busy, that's one thing. But where some women get caught up is in that wishful thinking, wish casting, where it's like, oh, he's not calling me because he's busy. And I generally tell women, if you'll hear from him when he wants to talk to you. And if he's not telling you that he is just busy and that he wants to talk to you, he's generally not that into you.
Yeah. I'll get, again, this is from a perspective of, he was saying like, look, this guy likes you, like, stop. And then
was the guy telling you that he was busy?
Yeah, no, okay. He was. He kept saying like, I like you. And I even
so that's different.
I even did a really manipulative thing once. And I was like, hey, there's this other guy that I'm kind of talking to and I need advice. Can you help me out?
Oh God.
And he was like, no. He's like, that seems super friend zoned, like not going there. He's like, I'm not giving you any like dating advice. Sorry. So he, just point out all the stops, but it actually worked. Like last year I did the same thing. And the guy was like he was like, oh my gosh. He was like, he was like drawn in by that, which is like, I don't know, now thinking about it. But anyways, what I was going to say is the psychic was coming from the place of, yeah, this guy likes you. So you need to realize that people get busy and people have priorities, and these really dynamic guys that you like, they're going to be busy. And I'm a Scorpio through and through. I come from a place of like, I'd like to be your biggest priority. Like I want to, it's a real turn on for me to feel loved and wanted. And so that's,
I think most people can relate to that.
But some people more than others. Like some people don't need to hear, like I have a friend and she like, yeah, it's funny too, because she's a Pisces and like she doesn't really need that. Like it's
like,
your
love language.
Yes. I'm like
I understand.
You don't have to take me to a nice dinner. You don't have to buy me presents. I want to hear that you cannot live without me. You can't keep your hands off me.
I literally just said this to someone. I said, all I want to hear on a regular basis is that you can't live without me.
Yes, I want to know that when you open your eyes, you're
I
like,
don't
hey,
care about
oh my
presents.
God, she's so cute. I like that.
We have the same love language.
And it's funny too, because I've actually, my ex was extremely well-to-do and gave me a lot of those things. Like I just accidentally, I didn't even know he was well-to-do when I started dating him, but he was. And
it didn't matter.
Presents galore, steak dinners, all these things. And I'm like, I would think a lot of times like, you're totally wasting this on me.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like I could eat at, Norm's. Norm's Diner. I don't give a shit. Swingers, whatever. But yeah, it's like, I just want to know that like I'm valuable to you.
I'd like to take a quick break so we can talk about our sponsor. Are you stumped on gift ideas for Mother's Day? It's right around the corner. Fabfitfun is a great gift to yourself or to a loved one. Surprise your mom or sister or aunt or any of the women in your life with the spring box as a gift or to show thanks. Do you have a daughter who's going to college or in college or a friend who is a new mom? Fabfitfun is an awesome care package. Fabfitfun is a seasonal subscription box delivered 4 times a year with full-size beauty, fashion, home, fitness, and wellness products for just $49.99 a box. Full-size products, guys. No samples of anything. Every box is guaranteed to have over $200+ in retail value. You can customize your box by choosing some products and add-ons with each box or be surprised with each box. You guys, I'm so excited to get this box for my aunt for Mother's Day because it has all the beauty care products and she's kind of a maven and she likes to be on the cutting edge of what's coming out and it comes every quarter. So it's like a gift that keeps on giving. So get out there and order these boxes for Mother's Day because they do run out and it's such a cool present. Or get it for your daughter or for your sister or for your friend who's having a baby. It's such a great way to remind somebody you love them continuously throughout the year. Sign up for Fabfitfun today. These boxes always sell out, so use my code WALKIN to get $10 off your first box. Go to fabfitfun.com to sign up and start getting the box for a life well lived. Use promo code WALKIN to get $10 off your first box. That's over $200 value, guys, for only $39.99. So go to fabfitfun.com and use my code WALKIN to get $10 off your first Fabfitfun box.
And it's funny too because I started to talk to another I don't know if you call him artist. I do call an actor artist. A pretty big actor who coincidentally is on like 8 out of 10 billboards I see around town right now. Yeah, it's so funny. I just like look and there he is, like huger than, and I'm just like, it's just funny to be in LA and that kind of thing comes full circle, which has never happened really for me. And I've lived here for like 13 years.
Too well.
Yeah, so it's like you're like, hey, how you doing? Anywho, the psychic told me, he was like, this guy is not serious. He doesn't want anything with you. And I mean, I suppose he could have extrapolated that from like what I told. I didn't go into it, but he was like, he was like, no, this guy he's not only emotionally unavailable, but he treats women like objects. He doesn't care. And I'm like, hey, treat me like an object. No, but like, in some arenas that sounds good, but he was just like, this is going nowhere. This
is why men are so confused about women.
He was just like, no, how is that confusing? Treat me like an object in the bedroom. It's not confusing at all. Which he did. No, but anyways, so he was like, this is going nowhere, and he called it exactly. He's like, literally, if you're having any relations with this person, you need to be very clear that it's just fun and blah blah blah. And I said, okay, and it turned out exactly like he said. So there were some major. He definitely predicted some things that were correct. So I had sort of it reinforced, and then it also gave me agency to really think about my own gut instinct, and that it's right. Sometimes sometimes what my instinct is thinking about is honing in on is fear-based, and so sometimes it can be off, but a lot like with Bert, whatever that, I made up that guy's name, the musician guy.
Yeah.
Like with him, I was so connected. I just felt so much chemistry with him. And so it was fear-based that I was just like, he doesn't like me, you know, all this stuff. And truly was just like under a ton of pressure and busy and like didn't have time, which he clearly knew I was like a handful. So he like didn't have time to a lot of time to devote at that point. But he's consistently come back, and the psychic called it. He's like, he'll be back. He's coming back, you know, and he has. So I kind of know that too. Like I can feel that he likes me and I can feel it, but then for some reason I'm like, the fear takes over and I'm like, does he or does he not? And this was kind of why I got really, I mean, I say sucked in, like, you know, because I did spend like an exorbitant amount of money on him over the years. But again, he did alter the course of my life and say, you're, you know, being unstable, you need to get to therapy ASAP, like get your, you know, medication on track. Like you really need to focus on that part of your mental health and heal your childhood traumas before you can be healthy for anyone in a relationship.
I mean, that is amazing that he did that, because I feel like most people in his position would just continue to take advantage of the instability.
He doesn't care. He didn't care at all. And he would never, he would never email me on the side or anything like that. He truly was
ethical.
And just there to help. Like he really was. And then he would like discuss my triggers with me. He's like, these are your triggers and you know them and you need to think about them. And then at the end, I just told Bridget that I almost have 30 days in another program that would prevent me from speaking with the psychic. So it's been like 25 days since
this is with the psychic that you're not allowed to speak with?
So my bottom lines. Yeah. So it's been 25 days since I've talked to him.
So why is he part of that?
Because he is a replacement for a higher power. He became a replacement for a higher power.
Right.
Towards the end.
And what program is this? What are you addressing in this program? Just so the listeners know.
So it's actually a very scary name. And I kind of wish that it was named something else, because it's called Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, which prevented me actually from tackling these issues for a long time, because it's like, who wants to identify as a sex and love addict? It sounds like you're in a room with a bunch of leery men and they're all creeps.
A lot of that is, you know, there's a lot of questions around whether sex addiction is even real.
Right. And to that I say, absolutely it is. Just as much as gambling. It's not.
Right, because it's a behavioral addiction. So it's different. They're different. There's a lot of research around this and a lot of differing perspectives. Right.
And so with addiction, and I've told Bridget I'm 13 and a half years, almost 14 years sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so with that kind of, you know, little bit of time and experience, I've learned that anything can be an addiction. Anything really can. It's not about the act. It's about it's before that. It's before that. It's like, what are you trying to check out from? Yeah. And so with the sex addiction, there are people who are trying to hide from themselves, trying to check out, and sex is the vehicle that they use to do that, and it takes them to dark places. But more what I have seen in the rooms, and there's so much hope in those rooms and so many great women. And what I've seen is that it's more that these are women who have not addressed their attachment injuries. Their mother hunger is a phrase that I've, you know, talked to you about, that, you know, a lot of people think that my dad left, it's daddy issues. Well, it's actually, no, it's mommy issues is what a lot of people have. Unless your dad was like crazy abusive or something very, you know, outstanding that your dad kind of, you know, really changed your life in a bad way. The relationship with a mother and the way that she comforted you and helped you to make sense of traumas that any person on earth would go through just by the fact of being a human. That's the most important relationship. And if you have an emotionally unavailable mother, which it was very confusing for me, and we talked about covert abuse, like my mom it was so confusing because she is beloved by everyone that knows her, and she has like a million friends, and they're just all like, oh, you're so lucky to, and I really am. She's amazing. She was always there. But when I first heard that if your mom is emotionally unavailable, just maybe because she's too busy, or she has to work late or whatever it may be, that is where it's a science. It's like, if this behavior is being presented in adulthood, this is what happened in your childhood. And it tends to be that your mom was emotionally available. So like, that's where, when they say love addiction, like that's what it's more about.
It's really an attachment disorder.
Exactly. And I was joking with my sponsor that we were saying like, it should be like, Trauma Survivors Anonymous or something, like give it a softer, sweeter name instead of like Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, because it sounds so
seedy,
terrible and seedy, and like prevented me from tackling that core issue for so long because I didn't want to identify.
It's so weird, the journey that we take to end up in these places of healing and dealing with that stuff, women and men, having to face those demons and those injuries and those hurts that came either in our childhood or even in our adulthood when we were traumatized and hurt, and then the people that come into your life at those times to help you heal them or re-injure them, so reopen them, so you have to look at them, those scars, and none of us are immune to that.
None.
And what I've found is that the biggest gift, I think, of sobriety is, at least now I have the presence of mind to deal with them instead of just always running from them and then creating more wreckage, but always running or hiding. And I was joking about, it's today's day one for me back on Twitter.
Oh, right.
And I've been joking. I've been sober 5.5 years, but I've had Twitter the whole time because I went off Twitter. And I also have been joking that I accidentally found God during Lent.
Was it hard?
Yeah. And it's a huge escape. I mean, maybe now at least I can view it. I feel much more lighthearted about it. And I'm not sure if it's just because I've been off for so long that I have a different perspective on Twitter and the culture, completely the culture of Twitter.
What did you kind of...
It's just so no one cares. No one in the real world cares. I spend time with my sister and my nephews, and like no one cares about the petty, minute little things that everybody on Twitter and the kind of Twitterati get into fights about. Like no one cares. And it passes almost immediate as quickly as it comes up, and it seems blown out. And somebody today on Twitter was saying, everyone I know is on Twitter, therefore everyone is on Twitter. So you get that perspective of that's
where everyone is,
right? But it's not true, and most people don't even have any clue. When I talk to people who aren't on Twitter about stuff that happens on Twitter or anything, I sound like a crazy person. But it really was interesting to see what an escape I was using it as from, even most recently, heartbreak. But before that, just getting sober and God knows what. But when I pulled my head out of my ass and like went off Twitter, it was eye-opening to see how much I had used it like a drug.
Just as God intended.
It was hard.
Oh, for sure. And I think, I always say too, like, I think sometimes alcoholics and addicts get a bad rap, but I think that they're just very resourceful people who want to feel better. You want to feel better. You don't want to sit through that uncomfortable feeling. So like a normal human, you're like, how can I make myself feel better? And so to, take that contrary action and sit through those uncomfortable feelings and just be like, I'm going to do nothing. It's like, it's actually like weird, No,
and most
people do it.
And that's the thing, is a lot of humans have coping mechanisms and they know how to cope with being uncomfortable. I never had time and space to really pay attention to any of that stuff. I moved a lot. My upbringing was just kind of chaotic. So I think when you come from just nonstop moving and chaos at home, you're not really given the space it's like my therapist said, she said, you've just been in fight or flight your whole life. So finally the past 5 years, it's been, I don't know how to slow down or just sit and be uncomfortable because I was always just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And once you get out of that mode, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
how do I
it's
even
chemical,
feel?
it's cellular. And so to say like, oh, okay, I'm X amount of years old and I'm going to reparent myself now and say, what would be good for little Bridget? What would be good for little Anne? And like, I mean, it's these things that we have to do to sort of give ourselves a sense of normalcy and rebuild. And I mean, that I think is so courageous. Like when I'm sitting in a room of alcoholics and addicts, a lot of times I'm like, these people are rock stars, like
miracles.
Like to sit there and confront yourself on the daily. And that's another thing the psychic said to me. He was like, I even feel like he's more of like a healer, but he said, you need to face yourself. He said that to me.
Sounds more like a healer.
Yeah, he said so many times, he's like, and I didn't even know what it meant when he would say that. I'd be like, what does that mean? Face myself. I looked in the mirror. I'm like, okay, but it's like, no, to truly, sit there and not check out with something. And I went off, social media too. And I, the differences between us is that you're social media is a viable source of income. Like I had like a few grand followers on Instagram and it was like, if anything, it was a relief. Like I didn't have to like be in a cute outfit and take a photo and all these things. It was just like, oh my gosh, cool. Like I don't even give an F and like I'm not.
But I still think it's all the same. I mean, even though, yes, as my friend Art who came on here said, I've just figured out how to monetize my addiction. He's like, so you're just a drug addict who started cooking meth in your basement. Right. And that's funny and uncomfortable
and poignant.
Yeah. But I do think that underneath all of it, and what I was really confronted with and what I had to sit with in those 40 days, and why I joke that I found God, because it's really the only solution to the feeling, no matter what the feeling is or where it came from. And this was another thing that I had to confront, whether I have attachment orders from my upbringing, the trauma that I experienced. It doesn't matter. Right now, in this moment, I have massive feelings of worthlessness. And that was really what I had to sit with for day after day after day after day after day, and not check out on Twitter. And I don't have any escape. I don't have coffee, but that's it. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't have any of those vices. So I started going to the gym more, which is great. And sweating can kind of shift that perspective, but really it is that idea of the God-sized hole.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm like, this is really what it is, man. It all comes back to this. It doesn't matter. And I know people who had parents who loved them dearly and still feel worthless.
100%. And it's that concept of, I was just thinking about that on the way to work today, the God-sized hole, and like really coming back to your source and realizing that. And that was a huge part of, my sobriety, excuse me, that I actually didn't learn in the rooms or from the literature, was that we're worthy because we're born. That's like some Abraham Hicks stuff that I was just like, I had to come to the fact that, or to the realization that like, no matter what, I'm a lovable person. It doesn't matter. It's each person that's born is lovable, and that's just it. And it was like, a lot of the work that, we do in the rooms and that I've done, in therapy and things like that, is like part of the, I want to say insidiousness, but that might be too heavy of a word for this. But part of the confusion was that I did have a great upbringing. I went to private school. Yeah. I had my college paid for. Like I really did. And, something that, a mentor, or I don't want to say mentor, but she used to say to me, another girl doesn't have a dad and another girl has this and she's just fine. But that sort of conversation helps you to disown yourself. Right. It helps you to abandon yourself. So if there's another girl that had the exact same stats as me, well, still, I'm Anne, and this was what happened to me, and this is my story. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm holding people accountable, and I'm working on myself. And that's just it. So
this is my issue with intersectionality.
Okay.
What you point to, and this is a conversation that my therapist and I were having, is that she's having a hard time treating people coming in from that intersectional perspective, where everything is treated like a group and it's all power, and these groups, everyone's viewed through the lens of power and race and privilege. And as you just pointed to, it doesn't matter. I've sponsored people who came from nothing, and I was in rehab with women who came from, I was in the only white girl in a rehab when I first went in when I was 19. And I used to say all of this all the time. I have all this. it's funny because all these conversations of like, check your privilege. I remember the moment I became so highly aware of my privilege. And it was in rehab at 19 when I was the only white girl with all these women in a group therapy session talking about our trauma and where we came from. And I wouldn't share. And the therapist said the same thing. They said, you know, this is a way of disowning yourself and from your pain. And I always joke, and then I would tell my story, and everyone was like, man, white people are fucked up. Like everybody in the room.
That's really funny.
And it became this kind of joke. They're like, oh, why do you all have these crazy stepdads? Like it just, I had this whole perspective that my pain was somehow lesser than, and it doesn't matter. Everybody's pain is relevant and unique and pain.
Yeah. And that was a hindrance to me processing and like getting healthy for so long, is that it was like I would make myself feel bad for feeling the way that I was feeling.
Yeah.
And it's not about oh, you know, my mom did this, that's why I'm this way. It's just you're on a fact-finding mission to figure out why these patterns keep presenting themselves in your adult life. And so through that, I'm like, oh, that's where that comes from. And then I can, when those come up, you know, in everyday life, I can say, oh, that's that. And I can, you know, kind of put it there and then act in a different way or respond in a different way. But I think that too was part of the vulnerability of, you know, needing someone. The psychic became like a father figure, you know, and he was just always there. He's always, you know, no matter what, he would calm me. It was so soothing to be like, don't worry, like whatever. But towards the end, he wouldn't even answer questions about the musician anymore. He's like, I'm not going to be your bartender. I'm not answering these questions. Like, you gotta face your stuff. You gotta heal and get stable, and then everything will unfold.
And so when you guys had your breakup or whatever, was it healthy and fine? Or was it a falling out, or what happened that you stopped seeing?
So what happened was
you did your taxes and you were like, okay.
Yeah, I know, right? Ugh. Yeah, because him and I kind of got in a few, like, we would disagree sometimes, because he would really get to the heart of the matter quickly than I even knew what was going on. And I'd be like, no, I don't. And he's like, yes, you were chasing that. And I was like, no, I wasn't. And then like a month later, I'd be like, oh, I was chasing that. So like we would argue actually. But what happened that we sort of, you know, stopped talking was that I came into the rooms of slaw, and that's on a bottom line. I can't talk to psychics, which is so funny because when but you create your own bottom lines?
Yeah. Okay.
So, and that's the thing about the SLAW program, is that it's
because it's behavioral.
It's gentle. And where AA is more a lot about, you hear like action and get into action and all this stuff. This is more get into sit, get into pause. And so you so kind of uncomfortable. Yeah. It's like a lot about like self-reflection and knowing, okay, what are the things I'm doing to take myself out of the present moment? And those kind of become your bottom lines. The things that you know you kind of shouldn't be doing, but so, you know, I'm a person that like, okay, when I'm really surrendered, I'm like, let's do this. So I put like on all the heavy hitters. I'm like, no Googling the musician, no Googling his ex, like hardcore, all the stuff that I was doing. And you go on a 90-day social media pause, which was great because I was already on a pause for Lent. And then, and then the psychic was one of them. He was one that he became my replacement for a higher power, because I would ask for, you know, a lot of the times he would give me good guidance, but then I would also be asking about the musician. And he was like, you really need to stop that. So yeah. And I emailed the site and I asked for all my 5 different alias accounts to be deleted. And so they're all gone, all the transcripts. I saved one just in case of an emergency, like to calm me down. I saved one transcript, which I haven't had to use that much. And then
what do you use them for?
The transcripts?
Yeah.
Oh, just like if I'm just like having like a really nostalgic moment, and I'm like, you know, I'm in my, they call it a withdrawal period. So you're pausing on all of your behaviors, and it's just super uncomfortable. Like I can't tell, and that obviously tells me I'm in the right place, but it's just uncomfortable to stop doing these things. So I'll read the transcript to be like, okay, calm down. You're good. Like it kind of, and again, it's like, I don't use it often because I'm really, the great byproduct is that, not even a byproduct, it should be the whole reason is that I'm connecting with my source more, and I'm really trusting, and my AA sponsor says, pray like you've never prayed before. And I just am, that I found like mantras are really helpful that I've been doing. So yeah, I mean,
do you think it's like obsessive compulsive behavior?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I was diagnosed with OCPD last year, which is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So it's not, you don't have like the hand washing rituals, like things like that. It's more, I would get on a thought loop, and then I would use the psychic to like comfort me. And that would be the ritual part. So, and as we do more research, as more research comes out about alcoholics, it's a lot of times alcoholics and addicts have undiagnosed OCD or OCPD. Yeah.
It's definitely self-soothing behavior.
100%. Yeah. So, and I mean, we're talking like, I had some like heavy financial consequences that I was like dodging, like a little like, like American Ninja when they're like jumping from the wall to the wall. Like I had some like major financial consequences. Like I had to borrow money once to pay my rent. And I had, like I got myself in some debt, and I had to really, grapple with that because the two issues are so closely intrinsically related, the financial and, how you feel about yourself. And so, yeah, I mean, to think about all the money I could have in savings right now and that I spent on, but again, it's like, that's neither here nor there, because now I'm surrendered, and I'm saying like, okay, the psychic got me to this point, and he helped me. And now I have to be the big girl and grow up and be like, okay.
And it's a lesson.
Yeah, it's a lesson.
I mean, if there was no consequence, you might still be just carrying on.
Oh yeah, I would be, if I didn't have, and that's the thing, that's so smart about the programs is like, it helps at least with me, like I have such a competitive nature that like I have, 25 days, and I don't want to have to go back and tell everyone that I had to start again because I talked to my psychic. So I'm like, I have 25 days and I'm not going back.
Right.
So yeah. And I was going to ask
that is what I like about counting. A lot of people have issues with that, and they're like, then you slip, and then and people downward spiral, which is somewhat dangerous. But even like we were talking before we started recording, and I'm like, I'm day one back on Twitter, and literally didn't, my cousin Maggie, who was in charge of my Twitter account, she wouldn't give me my password until she said, okay, you need to like have a plan and put rules around this.
And aftercare plan. No, a re-entry plan. Reintegration.
But I was like, that's like telling a junkie to be like, all right, let me know how you're going to use your heroin tomorrow.
Yeah, seriously. Here's your methadone and have fun. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we can do this, but I'm not making any,
I'm not making any promises.
I was writing down my plan, like laughing to myself.
That is so funny. Hey, whatever works though. That's good self-care.
But it didn't work.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I didn't do any of the things.
Hey,
like,
you know what?
Don't wake up and look at it. What did I do? Woke up and look at it.
Well, because it's a conversation that you're part of, and that's
but
again.
Still, I do have to watch it. I do have to watch it.
And everyone, every single person. And I had some friends on Instagram who had, a couple 100,000 followers, and I would talk to them. I'd be like, is it hard for you? And they're like, I hate social media, but now I've developed this huge following, and it's a business, and I have to keep going. But they, so it's great for a lot of things. I love it that like small businesses can get notoriety and artists and all these great things that, it's helped with, but a lot of people are suffering that don't, that you wouldn't even think about.
I'd like to take a quick break so we can talk about our sponsor. When it's time to make a hire for your small business, naturally, you want to find the best person for the job. Odds are that person is on LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to get matched with quality candidates who make the most sense for your role. LinkedIn Jobs use knowledge of both hard skills and soft skills to match you with the people who fit your role the best. People come to LinkedIn every day to learn and advance their careers, so LinkedIn understands what they're interested in and looking for, which means when you use LinkedIn Jobs to hire someone, your matches are based on so much more than a resume. Your LinkedIn jobs matches are based on skills and background, sure, but also interests, activities, and passions. Matching lets you quickly get a group of the most relevant, qualified candidates for your role. That way, you can focus on the candidates you want to spend time talking to and make a quality hire you're excited about. Customers rate LinkedIn jobs #1 in delivering quality hires. I love LinkedIn. It's reconnected me to so many people I've met throughout my lifetime in the many schools, colleges, different cities I lived in, and connections that I have through other people that I didn't even know I had. People are now soliciting me for writing jobs through LinkedIn. It's just such a great professional business site where I feel like everyone has such a similar purpose and is invested in helping other people either grow their business or find the best people. And posting a job opportunity on LinkedIn is such an easy way to match with the best candidates and weed out people that might not be appropriate for that position very quickly. Post a job today at linkedin.com/walkin and get $50 off your first job post. That's linkedin.com/walkin. Terms and conditions apply.
But I was going to ask you, like, were you upfront about your alcoholism on Twitter from the beginning? Or like, was it like a moment that you were like, I'm sober? Or like, how did you kind of decide
Twitter kind of got me sober. And in a way that I joke, Twitter has given me so much life. But in the way that I went on, I was traveling around. I went on Twitter in 2008, but didn't get it. I got in trouble almost immediately, got blocked by Demi Moore because I was trolling her and Ashton. It was when they were trying to get 1 million followers over CNN. And I was like, this is the downfall of our discourse. I knew back then. I'm like, when celebrities have as much power as our news organizations, we're fucked.
Oh my gosh.
And
wait, why were they trying to get more followers?
It was just a race. He was about to get to 1 million and CNN didn't have 1 million. So then they were racing and it was this whole thing. And I was just sick in bed with a cold. And I was like, I'll check this Twitter thing out. And I didn't get it really at all. And I was being snarky and trolling them. And then I said, yeah, well, if you guys are like, they were talking about doing something. And I'm like, well, you guys have money. Why don't you donate mosquito nets instead of asking all these other people to donate money? And then he said, someone mentioned that I should donate mosquito nets. And I was like, holy shit, they listen to you? Like,
oh my gosh.
You're
like, oh, they can see you.
They can, I can talk to celebrities on here. This is nuts. And
oh yeah, all the DMs, all the liaisons that have happened out of those Twitter DMs.
So I went off and then promptly just kind of forgot about it. Maybe it was later than 2008, maybe 2000. I don't remember the year. And then I traveled around the world for 2 years and came back and was lost waiting for, I had a waitressing job, but they didn't have that many shifts for me. I had a lot of time. And I started to go on Twitter. I think it was the spring. I came back and then I found all these writers and they just made me laugh and they were like Family Guy writers, and I found my tribe, I guess. What I would say is I started, and then I got obsessed with it and just studied it for 2 weeks. I just read every study I could find about it and recognized that it was like a highly addictive drug and started just engaging. And I did, and I've written about this.
I realized it was a highly addictive drug, so then I started engaging.
Doing it. Yeah. And I did it kind of in the same way that I did when I was a new girl at high schools, which was like highly provocative. I had a naked, it was me standing on stage naked, the Abby, and you couldn't see like anything, but it was like a provocative Abby. And then I had like 200 followers that I've been doing all this stuff. And then I was drinking wine with my friend one night and she said, you need to engage. And I just happened to look down at my phone and then I saw that Dane Cook had tweeted something. He's like, you know what? Girls suck at Vine. Who hasn't? I haven't actually.
You haven't?
No. He blocked me. So I'm like,
why did he block you?
Because I said he said girls suck at Vine. And I said, you know what? You suck at comedy, asshole.
Yeah, he's very
and then
he's very touchy.
And then he retweeted me, but it was like and I've written about this, I got like 3 days of mobbed by Dane Cook fans, which are like the dumbest people in America.
So dumb.
And but my following tripled. Like, I guess a lot of people follow Dane and thought that. And I just started engaging, but then I was always joking about how I was an alcoholic on Twitter. I always was joking about like, I'm an alcoholic. And I think it got to a point where it was also as I kind of was swirling down the drain internally, but at the same time, I was seeing it in ones and zeros in black and white over and over and over again. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. I mean, you can only say it jokingly and behave that way for so long. And I had been in rehab at 19. It's not like I didn't have years of information at my disposal. And it was part of the thing that really led me back to sobriety. It was just seeing that over and over again.
Oh, interesting. And then, so when you were in rehab and then you got out, like, and you were drinking, fast forward a few years, like
20.
Were you, okay.
I mean,
were you
like
thinking
15.
like I'm in relapse right now? Or were you like, I'm not really an alcoholic?
No, I think I always knew I was an alcoholic even before I went into rehab. I think when I was young, I was joking about being an alcoholic in high school. And then when I was in rehab, because I was in rehab for heroin, I just figured if I stopped doing heroin, then I was cool and that I was too young to really, I felt like I had enough information to control it. And then I just smoked weed and drank and did every other drug other than heroin and got me through my 20s. But even in my 20s, my ex-husband and I we were in the restaurant industry and we partied hard.
Oh yeah. They know how to get down.
Oh yeah. And we were both, bartending and waitressing, and it's just the nature of that industry is so toxic. And that became a rut for years. And then I found yoga and that I am like everything they say. It's like, I tried everything. I got therapy and yoga, everything to not have to go back. Because when I went out when I was 19, when I relapsed or whatever, I blamed the program. And I had read all the books. When people come to me now and they're like, because so many people have so many issues with 12-step programs, and I understand them.
I hear them.
I hear them too, and they're not for everybody. I don't think that there is like a one-stop solution for addiction. And by the way, it's not the only solution. That I joke that it takes a village to treat.
Yeah, it takes like an army and a navy for me, like 100%. And like just sorry to interrupt, but there that how we were saying about like all the billions of people on Earth, like I'm one of those people too. That like if I have a friend who's sober and they think that they're not an alcoholic and they go out and I'm like okay, more power to you. Yeah. I support, because out of the billions of people here, there's going to be some people that are drink. I had a friend who was absolutely like ringleader with me in our just group of hellions in college, and she would do the craziest stuff, and then she stopped.
Yeah.
And then, and
I know a lot of people who raged when they were younger, and then they got married and had kids and have a career, and just they still get a little wild and crazy sometimes, but they can moderate.
And maybe they have an addictive personality. Yeah. But it's not like I am so clear. Like I was just before we started recording, I was putting sugar in my tea and I kept like putting in all these lumps. It was literally like, it was
like a movie.
Like in Beauty and the Beast when they keep like putting the lumps. Yeah. Or what is that? Cinderella. Like where's the one where they keep putting the lumps in like over and over? Oh, Sword in the Stone. That's it. And then he has to like dust it all in his beard because there's so much. And I looked at Bridget. She like looked at me like, wow, that's a lot of sugar. And I'm like, you do know I'm an addict, right?
And I was joking about how I'm right back on Twitter addictively at day one. And we were saying that if anything, it is a reflection of, it's just that knowledge of being clear. I am clear that I'm like, this is what drinking would be like for me.
Yeah. For you, for anyone else, you do you. If you think that is the path, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, she's out.
No.
I'm like, okay, cool. Like I wish I could do that. Or if people are like, they have a hard night and they're hungover and they're like, I need to get sober. I'm like, no, you don't. Don't get sober.
That is one thing I hate about the mentality, sorry to interrupt, of the program of like, I don't need someone else to fail to prove to me that I'm doing the right thing for me.
No, exactly.
And so sometimes I'll see that where it's like almost people being like, they'll be back. And I'm like, no, I hope they don't come back.
Yeah, seriously. I hope they I hope they can drink like a gentleman, like it says. I hope they can. Like I wish that for you. I don't wish that like, oh, she's gonna fail. You know, there are some people, who are really struggling and they go out and I fear for them and I hope they're okay and I try to keep in touch the best I can and all those things. Yeah, because you're concerned for, you know, their well-being or whatever. But if a person, like I knew a dude who was like 11 years sober and he was like, I just don't think I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
He seems to be doing fine years later with drinking again. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like I always tell people, you know, if you need to get sober, you know, just because you have a hangover like 2 days in a row, you don't do that. You know what I mean? Like this
and
is like,
sometimes you can have long-term sobriety and it maybe was situational or maybe you were depressed. And that's the interesting thing too, is a lot of the times people will get sober and then they'll find out, oh, you are actually medicating bipolar. So once you treat the mental illness, you can drink you shouldn't, you know, drink a lot if you're on meds, but if
like
you're,
how much should I drink?
Yeah. But you know, you fix those chemical imbalances and now you're not needing to use alcohol or weed or whatever it might be as a coping mechanism, and you start using it normally.
Yeah.
And every single person I never really thought I'd be back in AA, and I was one of those anti-AA people. And I read every book that was like how AA failed me and all of it when I was 19, because I was building a case against AA so I could go out.
And to be your lawyer is a dangerous place to be because, you know, like me too. I am like litigator number one for myself. I'm like, and justification number one. You know, so it's like.
Oh, I can rationalize anything. If I wanted to go out tomorrow, I could convince everyone in my life that was the right thing for me to do.
100%. We're resourceful. We can, we are. That's why I swear it's like sometimes you get the bad rap and I'm like, no, these are smart people who like we find loopholes and we don't take no for an answer, you know. But yeah, I'm so clear for everyone else. My thing is you do you, and for me, I am so clear that if I literally took one shot of tequila, I would be doing a bag of blow. And who knows what the heck else within hours.
Oh, I say that all the time, and this is really why I can't smoke weed, because I know for a fact that I would smoke weed and maybe I'd manage it for months. Maybe I could probably have a great summer and then July would come around and I'd be stoned down in Venice in my little bikini and I would be wandering by and a hef would look good on the waterfront and people would be, and it's not a big leap from like that high to a buzz. And I'd be like, you know, I've been managing this weed thing for a while. I can have a drink, and I would be doing lines in the townhouse by like that night.
Oh my God. I
don't have any doubt about
That's the kind of person I always joke like I did blow off of every back of a toilet in Santa Barbara, like every single bar.
That's what's always so funny about addicts when they get sober too, because they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm like drinking my juice and I'm a hypochondriac. I'm like, I've seen you do blow off the back of a toilet and now you're like a hypochondriac.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was so I was just at a bachelorette party and this girl was like, two of the girls were trying to get blow and it was just I find it all very entertaining. Like I don't
judge.
Or like it doesn't trigger me at all. I just find it funny, you know, the whole dance. And then so she was like, oh, are we going to get it? Da, da, da. And then she had this like crystal thing on her phone. And I was like, what's that? It was on the back of it. And she was like, well, I do that to reverse the effects of the cell phone, something about the whatever effects of the cell phone on my, on my brain every night sleeping with it. And I'm like, okay, so you're just going to snort a bunch of blow now, but then you're also going to reverse the effects of the cell phone with the crystal. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's just, it's very
like such craziness.
It's very,
we're so insane. I mean, humans don't make any sense. Oh God, I was just going to tell you another funny story. It totally flew out of my mind. It's like insanity of, just showing how alive and well the addict within is. I went to this, it was like a grilled cheese tasting and I sat in. It's so good.
I guess my invite got lost.
I was the replacement. So my aunt was sick and I went with my uncle and this other like younger couple that they're friends with. And
fun.
It was fun, and it was a beer tasting, and it was like all these amazing beers with the grilled cheese. And so my uncle doesn't drink, and not because he's an alcoholic, he's a genius and just never drank. And he was like, Bridget, you don't. And I was like, no. I want them to have my extra beer. Cause I was like thinking for the young 35. I'm like, I was
For
like,
the
once
youth.
an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. I'm still figuring out for them how to get more beer. And they were so grateful. They're like, yeah, great. Because I was like, well, we don't want to waste my beer.
We literally sound like the exact same brand of addict alcoholic. Like there's something about it that's just like so deliciously like, I don't know. Yeah, same thing. I'm always like, I'm had to actively stop myself from instigating and being like, hey, take a shot. Like, hey, you seem a little, you need a drink, you know, like well into sobriety. Like I just think it's, I don't know. I think it's fun that even I think about like I'll be at a concert and I'll just look around for a moment and just think like, it's so funny that everyone gets together in this collective and like looks at the music or like everyone likes to party similarly, at least, you know, what am I talking about? Worldwide, everyone likes to have a drink, like dance, like, and it's just a universal type thing, you know?
And we want to get out of our heads. It's like come full circle. It's hard to be just present. That's why I look around at people who are sober all the time, or even people who are just naturally like they don't drink or need to escape their brain, as just crazy. Because even I was reading the history. It's the history of the world in 100 objects. And one of the oldest pieces of writing that we have is from it's like a beer, it's like Egyptian beer catalog or whatever. It's a tablet basically that was an inventory of beer. And I'm like, we've been trying to get out of here. It's so human.
Oh
to
yeah,
be like,
it's in hieroglyphics. It's like a guy like knocking
no, it was
one
like
back,
counting how many they had.
And inventory.
Yeah, so they I think it's just so normal.
Oh,
it's so normal.
Ayahuasca, like all the things.
I know.
Everyone wants to get out of their head, and I don't blame. I'm like, yes, I agree. Like, I wish I could do psychedelics and things. I wish I had that kind of mind. I'm very clear. I do not have that kind of mind. You know. So, but yeah, I
do. You think that we were talking about this because now I've become like. And everyone around me is like, I think you're addicted to quitting things, Bridget. And I do think that I've started just being like, nah, I guess I'll quit Twitter and then I'll quit.
Yeah. And then I'll be clean and then I'll be good. Yeah. I mean,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and that's the part where they say, you know, like we're not saints, we're just striving for, what I say in my head is like, I'm striving for excellence. I'm trying to be the best me that I can be. And yeah, I mean, I definitely like I've, you know, stopped smoking cigarettes and I've stopped, I don't drink caffeine. So definitely I'm like taking all these like vices away. And, you know, the thing is everywhere you go, there you are. So you take whatever away and you're still left with you. But that doesn't mean I don't also want to live a healthy life.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, that's actually the beauty of Slaw too, is that I was thinking, oh good, this not dating is so nice and comfortable. I'll just be one of those people that's really comfortable being alone. And my sponsor's like, no, you don't. You start dating at a certain time and you have a, you know,
plan.
You have a plan, and because then you'll be what they call anorexic or anorectic. They say it 2 different ways, but then you avoid it altogether.
Right.
And that's not, it's about having healthy relationships, integrated relationships. It's not, you know, black or white, which is what a lot of other programs are.
That's the interesting. Well, because with substances, you remove the substance and things just get better.
Yeah.
Because they do cause so much damage generally.
Yeah. They get better. And then your head, the causes and conditions in your head, comes out and truly presents itself. And then you're like, wait a second, looking around,
I'm bad.
Probably like 95% of these people also should have a second program, you know? Yeah. And it's just that stigma against, fuck, I'm an alcoholic, an addict, and I need this other thing. But it's like, now I don't even care. Like, 25 days, I'm like, I don't even care. Like, give me all the stuff.
Whatever
I just want to be healthy. I want to feel stable. I want to feel, you know, good, a productive member of society, which like I've managed to be through all this.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I think about my grandfather a lot. I've been reading all of his World War II letters.
He was he fought in World War II.
In the South Pacific, and they're amazing. But he was, you know, no self-pity, he's on a freaking like ship getting bombed every time they go underway for 6 months and no hit. And he's like, I don't want anyone to feel bad for me. I don't want you guys to think I'm feeling sorry for the tone of the letters. And we live in such a whiny culture, and there's so much self-reflection, almost maybe too much self-reflection and navel gazing and all this stuff. But he was also an alcoholic and didn't have any tools. I mean, they didn't even really have PTSD when they came back for World War II. Not the diagnosis. It wasn't even a thing.
They're just like, why am I like waking up?
They didn't talk about it. He never talked about it. And so as much as I feel bad sometimes, like, are we just a bunch of fucking pussies?
Yeah.
Like, that think about ourselves too much because we have it so good? Or is it healthy that people are kind of stepping back and taking stock? Because generally, the younger generations are healthier. They're finding they're drinking less, they're smoking less, they're also having less sex. I think they're all addicted to technology.
Yeah, which is like, I feel so bad for people who missed the boat of like smoking before we really knew. Because I mean, God, smoking is fun. Like, I miss that to this day. I'm just like, oh, it's just the best.
It's so hard to quit.
It looks so sexy. It's just the best thing. It's like, but yeah, I mean,
I've had to make it disgusting in my mind. I've just made it disgusting because I loved it so much. I was like, I can't love it.
I'm just like, I'm more of the school of just like, meh, it's I can't do it. It's off limits for me. But yeah, to your point, there's that part in Sex and the City when Carrie goes, so, therapy, it just seems so self-indulgent. Ancient man didn't need therapy. And then Miranda says, ancient man lived till 38 years old.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, like that time is amazing. And my grandpa too, he had untreated alcoholism, but he was like, he just trudged on. And my mom too, she's very much like, when I talk to her about like feelings and trauma and all that stuff, you can just see her eyes glaze over because she's just like, we're good, keep going, like you're doing fine, like all this stuff, you're fine.
I always make that joke. I'm like, bury that shit deep like the Greatest Generation and keep moving.
Keep on trucking. And no, I mean, 100%, I can see that too. But I also just think like, I don't want to freaking be in therapy. I don't want to do this stuff. Do you think I want to freaking sit and think about my freaking traumas all the time? No, I just want to feel happy and healthy. And
be of service.
Yeah, and be of service. And I am happy, but I can, I grew up just trudging along. So I can actually be in a bad place, but still tell myself I'm in a really good place.
Oh no, I'm just we just had this conversation. It's like I feel like I'm in the sunken place watching somebody impersonating Bridget, and that's so and my therapist is like, yeah, it's called dissociating. And I'm like, oh, that's what that is. But I mean, for 2 months I was heartbroken and kind of trudging along, a
shell of your former self.
But it's why this feeling of like unnerving, like suicidal kind of ideation will just pop up, and I'm always like, I'm not the kind of person that's gonna be like, I'm gonna kill my. It's like I'm more worried that it's a whim,
Yeah,
I feel like should I fold my clothes or like kill myself?
That's really. Should I get a gun or should I? No, that's interesting. It's funny. My brother does he does a lot of work for suicide prevention, and it's amazing. He had some friends die that way, and he's channeled his grief into something really positive and helpful.
So we always end the podcast with the same 2 questions. What is the biggest defective character or the thing that you have to work against the most on a daily basis?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I would say mine is probably slowing down. I like to go fast. I like to accomplish. I like to really like sit and be present and not kind of speed through life. I mean, that sounds like kind of a lame defective character. I wish I had one like lying or stealing, but yeah, it's really just to like slow down.
Patience.
Because oh my gosh, patience. That's the word I'm looking for. Patience. And just say, okay. And honestly, it's kind of true in my life today that I am more patient than I've ever been, which is like an anomaly. It's crazy.
And what's your biggest strength and asset?
Well, my legs are definitely one of my assets. Strength and asset. I would say I feel like I'm a natural hype woman. Like I'm naturally encouraging. Like I really truly like I'm one of those girlfriends that's like, you get the guy, you get the raise, like get that bread, get that man, and just enjoy life. You know what I mean? So that's I feel like an innate trait that I have that I really value about myself.
Yeah, you're really uplifting and empowering.
Well, thank you. And you're cute.
And you lifted me up when I was bummed recently. And just were like, you're getting in. I'm coming to get you.
Yeah.
We're going to the beach.
Get in.
Yeah, you're good about that. Like, go to the, I don't want to go. Go to the meeting. I'm like, ugh.
I know.
But you always do.
Yeah, which is
Inspire.
probably annoying, but I'm just
No,
like,
it's not at all. I need it.
Yeah, just
Sometimes,
yeah.
you know, I've given kind of everyone in my life around me orders that when I'm like, I don't want to go, especially to something that like has saved my life, I'm like, you have to be like, no, Bridget, go.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm sure like, to some people, it's like, geez, quit being so pushy. That's the defect. I'm also pushy, which I like really mean, because I imagine pushy, like fighting over something in the grocery store, but like, no, like if I really think like something is like, I'm like, no, come, we're going to the beach. You're going to have fun. There's great girls there. You're getting in.
Yeah.
Like
it's good though.
Yeah.
That's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on, and what an amazing and wandering conversation.
Oh, it has been the highlight.
We'll have to
of
have
my
you back.
2 hours.
That's awesome. So I guess we won't ask where we can find you since you're not on social media.
I know, right? You can just wonder that there's a girl walking around LA named Anne, and she has, some interesting stories.
It's so good. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing and being so open. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks. It's time for the weekly check-in with Bridget and cousin Maggie.
All right. Let's go dive right into the
I still think we
check-in.
need to put outtakes on our Patreon. We really slacked off on that.
Yes. Well, it's because we're always last minute. I'm getting ready to post the podcast at like 12 o'clock at night on Wednesday.
Shame on Maggie.
Shame.
Shame on Maggie.
We'll get there. We'll get ahead one of these days.
No, we won't.
We better.
It's never happening. I've given up on that dream. Like all of my dreams.
See? 2 days back on Twitter and she's lost all hope.
Oh yeah, I'm back on Twitter. That's right. That's why I haven't done anything. I haven't posted on Patreon. I've just been back in my junkie state.
You're not doing your writing prompts.
I know. I'm so naughty. And I'm leaving for Texas. I'll be leaving for Texas when this goes live.
Yeah.
Probably on a plane to Texas when my listeners are downloading this eagerly to their podcasts, turning it on the minute that it lands. 'Cause they can't wait.
They can't wait a moment to hear your delightful voice. Yes.
I don't have a check-in, I guess, because...
Can you
back
tell
on
people
Twitter.
what you're going to Texas to do, or is that top secret?
No, I can tell them. My haters don't listen to my podcast. They don't hate me enough yet.
No, I just didn't know if that was something that you couldn't announce till it happened.
Oh,
or what.
yeah. I generally don't, just because it's more fun to keep it a secret.
But
It begins with a G and ends with Len Beck.
yes.
I'm going to do Glenn Beck's podcast.
Nice.
As one of my friends tonight told me, the epitome of evil.
Well, it's always good to stare evil in the face.
It's always good to have
Show it doesn't scare you.
It's not the first time, and it won't be the last. I have evil sliding into my DMs. It'll be fun. I'm excited. I wish that I could feel the way that people feel about me doing these I don't wish that I could feel that way, but
You admire their passion.
I admire their hatred.
Their passionate hatred.
I admire both sides' passionate hatred and commitment to... I admire their loyalty. And then there is the question that I constantly ask myself. Is Justin Timberlake thinking about me? And am I a Nazi? These are the two questions that haunt me.
Which question is more important to you?
Is Justin Timberlake thinking about me?
Yes, of course. That is the question, is it
Maggie
not?
and I have all these inside jokes, and one of them came about because I was thinking obsessively about Justin Timberlake randomly, and generally when that occurs, it's because with someone in my life that I know, I usually come to find out they were thinking about me.
Right. Well, you get in touch with them and they're like, oh my God, I've been thinking about you nonstop.
Or like, oh my God, I was just, yeah. Or some, like, I was looking at pictures of us from 1997 and here you are. And
right. You hear their psychic call. So now this is.
So then
instance.
I just randomly was telling Maggie, I'm like, God, I've been listening to so much Justin Timberlake and I've been thinking about him. Well, I started thinking about him, then I started listening to one of his my favorite albums of his.
Uh-huh.
And then I was saying to Maggie, and I was like, it just got me thinking, is Justin Timberlake thinking about me? And now I want to make that t-shirt.
And now, yeah, that's going to be a Phetasy shirt.
As soon as possible.
Such a great shirt.
Because I need to get the message out into the world.
So eventually it will be true. Justin Timberlake will be thinking about you if he's not already.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then the am I a Nazi question, well, I get told I'm carrying water for Nazis like 75 times a day.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just overhearing your conversation that you were having earlier about the flattening of words and the kind of loss of meaning of these words that we throw around so casually. And I started to actually think about it, and it really is disturbing how the word Nazi has lost the like the meaning that it should have and the connotation that it should have by just being so loosely thrown around as a term and thrown at people that you don't like what they're doing, so you call them a Nazi.
Right.
And
or you disagree with them, so you call them a Nazi.
Right. And that's a denigration of the reality
of what Nazis did.
What Nazis did.
Well, this was always what my pushback was, but now even I fall into the trap of making a joke about it because you have no choice but to make a joke about
when enough people call you it.
It's the only way out of the trap.
Right.
It's like it's why I've really only been able to write satire lately, because it feels like the only way out of the trap of the flattening of words and the parody of everything and the basic binary that's been created is to just mock all of it mercilessly.
Right. And your satire game has been spot on.
Chef's kiss. I do feel like Jack Dorsey is my next victim. I want to do Jack Dorsey's journal.
Jack Dorsey.
He's the founder of Twitter.
Oh.
Not that you would know that.
No,
Maggie.
I wouldn't know that at all.
This is how oblivious. I'm just glad the rest of the world gets to see the bubble that I deal with. There's the liberal bubble and the conservative bubble, and then there's the Maggie bubble, which is like completely oblivious to all things in the outside world.
It's a happy bubble.
It's a good probably balance for someone like me who's so in it. It's a
you
nice
certainly
retreat.
wouldn't want someone else who is also as
no, I
as
do
you.
though. I mean, it's a nice balance. I would say that I've needed somebody who's in it.
Yeah, you need to have those people there, but I don't think you'd want me there with you in that respect.
No, I think it's a nice retreat and a nice sounding board and balance, and like your perspective is so pure since you don't even know who frickin' Jack Dorsey is, the founder of my lifeblood.
He's basically your god.
He's basically my boss. I don't know.
And you worship at the altar of his creation.
Jack Dorsey made me. Well, anyway, he had a meeting with Trump today.
Hmm.
And there was a funny picture of them talking to each other. And now everybody's saying that Jack is a white supremacist.
Oh, boy.
Of course. But I was saying that I tweeted something about it jokingly. It was a satirical article that will probably be written about how he's alt-right. And comfortably smug, in quotes, had a funny tweet where he said Jack 100% looks like he poops on sidewalks. Well, because the other thing you missed this week, it's a callback to the other thing that happened this week was that there was a map of all the poop, the human feces that they found in San Francisco. Somebody did a map of it. They logged all the poop.
Oh, that's on sidewalks?
Let me show you the picture.
Oh, Jesus. I don't know if I need to see this.
It's not a picture of poop, Maggie.
Yeah, but I don't even know if I need to see how many people are pooping on sidewalks in San Francisco.
Anyway, Jack Dorsey is apparently one of them. No, but he does 100% because he looks like borderline homeless.
I was wondering how that thought would spring into one's mind, though. So I guess you answered that question.
Here, I'm showing Maggie the picture.
Oh my God.
It's disgusting.
That is horrifying.
I'm showing her the Lachlan from Daily Beast picture that he had going around in his little article.
For fuck's sake.
I know. Ugh. And so I made some allusion to something that would be written about him, like when he's not pooping on sidewalks or ignoring mosquitoes in Cambodian caves, because he did a Vipassana meditation out there. I mean, he became, you don't watch Silicon Valley, do you?
No.
He became the parody of the guy in Silicon Valley that is essentially the tech guru who has a guru and is doing all these stupid
so much
spiritual
money. Yeah. Trying to find the meaning of life.
Completely out of touch with reality and is a parody of himself. And yeah, I do. So now I want to do a satire that I think my next piece needs to be an excerpt from Jack Dorsey's journal.
I like it. Can't wait to read it.
So many plans.
So little time. Now that you're back on Twitter.
I think it is. I said on my Patreon, I'm like, it's not a coincidence that the first day I went back on Twitter is the first day I missed my writing prompt. I've missed them. I've been falling behind, but I haven't missed posting my writing prompt, and I missed it Sunday and Monday. I've been in Sunday I was busy. I was really busy.
Tisk, tisk, tisk.
But Monday I had no excuse. I was in a junkie K-hole.
Uh-huh. You were
just feeding
the addiction.
She's back.
Yep.
It's so good to see all my people.
They missed you, for sure.
I miss you guys. Every single one of you. I'm nothing without the Twitter. Just a reminder, sign up for Fabfitfun today. Don't forget, these boxes always sell out. So use my code WALKIN to get $10 off your first box. Go to fabfitfun.com to sign up and start getting the box for a life well lived. Use promo code WALKIN to get $10 off your first box. That's over $200 value for only $39.99. Go to fabfitfun.com and use my code WALKIN to get $10 off your first FabFitFun box. I'd also like to thank LinkedIn. Post a job today at linkedin.com/walkin and get $50 off your first job post. That's linkedin.com/walkin. Terms and conditions apply. Tune in next week for another riveting episode that will change your life, help you get out of your own way, and solve all the world's problems. I want to thank our composer, Jared Elias, my co-producer and cousin, Maggie, and all of you out there listening. This has been Walk-In's Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you're welcome. It's the dumbest line.